Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we're going to program some Minecraft mods live on camera. And I am once again in witch mode for today. So, good news, we do have some good news, namely that the prophesied CPU has in fact arrived 3 days late, but it's just, I haven't installed it yet because frankly, computer hardware somewhat terrifies me, and also it's really exhausting for me, so it takes me a bit to do that. But we have it, it is available, it is ready to run. Hopefully there's no problems with the installation. I'm very fingers crossed on this, because according to the website that I looked up to find the right CPU, it should be perfectly fine. But I don't know, I've lived through like 2 different recessions, a once-in-a-century plague, and so much more else in my life, so I'm not exactly known for being very trusting of things that are supposed to work. So hopefully that goes smoothly and okay, but non-zero chance I'm still like this on Thursday. But yeah, suffice to say, we're still in witch mode for today. But anyways, last week we successfully implemented a very basic behavior tree and the whole behavior tree framework necessary for it. That is every single node that we needed. So, like selector, sequence, parallel, decorator, leaf. I have since also implemented leaf single, which is just a leaf that runs for 1 tick. So basically just does one thing and off it goes. Which applies to a whole ton of actions that a mob can theoretically be doing. To the point that I now actually have a class that is just common actions. So it's easier if I just look at the outline over here. We have make sounds, look at, constantly stare at. This one doesn't terminate, so it should usually only be in a parallel node, because those will actually terminate from something else. Wait, move to, jump, attack, melee, store nearest valid item in the whiteboard, pick up item, equip held item, unequip worn item, drop item, swap held items, and there's more that we'll be doing today. But first, let's take a look at our test entity, our little tester. Basically, this is still very much just the same thing that we had at the end of last stream, just slightly embellished with the nodes and whatnot that we have. So we've got our main route. We can check if we actually have the block position stored, because that sometimes doesn't work at the start of a tick, probably because the mob hasn't been loaded into memory, or it hasn't run before the whiteboard, that kind of thing. And then we have walk in circle, which is what we made last time. So wait 3 seconds, set the destination, which is a constantly rotating value, make a little alert noise, effectively, jump if they can, jump on the spot. It's kind of cute. I like seeing that. Wait another, like, second, and then off they go, constantly looking at the destination. As I say, should usually only be in a parallel node. But let's see what that looks like. Because AI is a rough thing to show off, especially in screenshots, because it really only happens in motion. There we go. And yeah, I think they only can jump if they're currently inside, if they're not sharing block space with something. That's a limitation of Minecraft. That's not my code. But yeah, there they go. Looking kind of clever, despite walking just purely in a circle. And it's nice. It's been said, since like the days of Fear and the development of Gope, that for an AI to look intelligent, it just has to, like, its sequence is basically perform an action and perform an animation, and that is basically it. As if they do enough, like, clever animations in sequence, then they look intelligent. So, previously, we literally just had this guy walk around. Now he makes noise, he jumps, he looks at where he's going, that kind of thing, and it makes him look a lot smarter than he's actually being. Just a little note for anybody who's writing their own AI, I guess. Also, yes, I may have walled him in slightly, because, every time that I close out the world, the state of the behavior tree isn't saved, So it boots up from 0 again, effectively, and consequently he ends up moved away from where he actually should be at the time. So he just sort of migrated away from spawn. Entertainingly. But okay. I'll just let this guy get to a nice solid pot. And there you go. Alright. So, the printout has also changed considerably, so we now actually can see our entire tree and which nodes are actually running. So here we have when the set destination one was called, then we have the alerts because we've just set the destination, then we move to the wait section, and then over to the go to destination. And we can tell that by these square brackets around the nodes. If there's a square brackets around the name of a given node, that node is considered to be currently active. So we can follow that all the way down the tree. Pretty convenient, pretty handy. There's still some like slight optimization that I could do because there's still ticks where nothing is actually happening, where no useful node is actually registering as being active, and that isn't what it should be, but it's fine for right now. Okay, so we have a list here of behaviors that we're going to be implementing. Now, what we have designed so far could effectively be described as a branch, a behavior tree branch, because all of this does one thing and one thing only, and then it's basically just looping through itself constantly. We have the capacity, by adding more nodes to the selector, to have something else happen, but because this particular node happens pretty much all of the time, there's not really any, like, qualifiers to it, it is effectively just one complex action, which we're going to call a branch, for simplicity. A complex action consisting of multiple child nodes, we're going to call that a branch. So, tree, branch, leaf. Straightforward, I hope. Well, tree, root, branch, leaf, that kind of thing. So we're going to start up by modifying our current little walking around into a simple wonder branch. And we're going to start by actually creating a branch wonder up here. And we're going to branch off of the sequence node for this. Okay. Gonna call that basic wonder. And now we need to give our series of nodes for this. So we're gonna start off with a simple leaf single node that sets our destination value based on relative position around our current mob. So, to that end, new leaf single, we're gonna call it set random pos. And let's see, this should be public void to action, our mob, and our whiteboard. Okay. So we have our mob. We know roughly what our range is going to be. We can theoretically have that be an input into here, so we don't actually need to have any inputs. But for right now, we'll say it's about 5 blocks. 5 blocks range, for wondering. So for that, we need to have... I'm trying to think here. We can either source this directly from the whiteboard, or we can source it from the mob, because the mob's the entity whiteboard stores the mob's current position inside of storage. That's more useful for descendants, but for right now, we'll just use it verbatim. So to that end, entity whiteboards, and we're going to go for mob position block. There you are. Okay. We're gonna need a random for this, because we're gonna pick things randomly. for that we'll get directly from the mob. Okay, so mob pos dot offset. They changed this around a whole bunch. A lot of these names have changed, it's infuriating. I have seen hell this past week in dealing with 1.19 code, but nonetheless. So let's see, we want random next int, and we'll say 10 minus 5. What that'll mean is that, firstly, it'll mean that because all of my VTuber poses are on my numpad, that the witch is terrified by this concept of randomness. There we go. What that will mean is that every time it's above 0, it'll go to negative, so we'll get left and right as just one value. Copy that for that, and we'll make it a smaller for here. We're just gonna say 4. 4 minus 2. There we go. Okay. Storage, set value, wonder targets. That. Okay. So that sets a random position in the vicinity of our mob inside of our whiteboard. A good start. The next node that we need, of course, is going to be a move to. And the address for that is going to be wonder targets, and we'll say our speed is 0.5. Okay. So that will mean that we are just constantly moving between these random positions. So let's add our weight. Now, I don't have a randomizer for this, so this can't be any number, but it can be a few seconds, at least. Let's say it's like 3 seconds. Okay. And that, more or less, defines just a random, just a walk around. There's another possibility here that we can do, which is that we can expand it so that they look roughly where they're actually trying to go. We could also have it be that they, whilst they're in this last section, that they're actually just looking around a fair bit. But for that, we would ideally need to have a variation of the parallel node, because the parallel node currently, as soon as any one of its children stops running, the whole thing shuts off. In theory, if we wanted to have a node that had more of a cooldown, we would have a wait inside of a parallel, and the parallel just keeps running until that wait is done. But we don't have that possibility currently because the parallel just works in one way. But for right now, we're just going to more or less archive all of this and just have it run through and say branch wonder. And oh boy, so many right brackets. Let's see, 1, 2, I think. I think that's correct. Yes, okay. There we go. So that whole thing we just had here is now just branch wonder. Okay. And we will have our guy make a noise just to tell us where he's up to. And let's say villager ambient. Why not? For this particular occasion. So, set a position, move to the wonder targets, make a sound, and then wait. Let's have that make a sound happen after the wonder, just for the sake of we know it's happened. Okay. This will work just like if we'd done it before, except now we have all those things neatly nested in there. Much easier, much more human readable. And this is part of where behavior trees become really, really fun and really interesting to deal with. Because you're basically just taking pre-existing Legos, gluing them together in ways that humans can actually comprehend. So every couple of seconds, just picks a random new place and tries to move to it. And that looks very much like the standard wandering code that Minecraft uses already, I think. Pretty nice. Yeah, good. So every time he makes the noise and doesn't move, it's because the random position has selected somewhere that he can't actually path to. Which is fine, because it kind of simulates the fact that Minecraft mods will just randomly occasionally say their ambient noise. Pretty neat, pretty neat. We are going to expand this a little bit just for decoration's sake, however. So over in our actions, we have wait. What we want to do is make this be some kind of randomizer. So public wait int, we'll say min ticks, int max ticks. Keep that value. Oh, Sippy. Why, thank you, Aluka. Oh, and a stretch, really? I feel like stretching is less self-care for me than it might be for you. Oh my. Oy. Okay, okay, oy. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna say min equals min ticks. So everybody is good for you, don't be stretching for me. I have actually been getting accustomed to using a crutch this past week. Simply because it takes a lot of the weight off of a lot of my joints, and that substantially reduces my actual pain levels. So using it even when I'm not necessarily in high amounts of pain is good for me, but it's definitely an adjustment period. That said, I think I've settled on naming my personal crutch Healbot, because it provides support and will fall over if you breathe on it too hard. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Healbot or healbot? Heal like a healer. Not heal as in Heelys. But okay, so if min does not equal max, then we need to set a random value within a range, else ticks equals min, which is our state of whenever we're just using one specific duration. Okay. So, we should do some QA up here just to make sure that min is always the lowest of the two values. And max is always the highest. There. Alive, awake, and not with it, but hear the heal, not the hear the heal, not I'm. I'm not sure I'm following that sentence, Esper. Are you sure you're awake? The healbot group? Okay. So when these values aren't the same, we want to calculate the difference, randomly select a volume of that difference, and add it to the minimum value. Fairly straightforward. So int diff equals max minus min, and then tix equals min plus mobin get random next int the diff. Definitely just do that because we only use the value once, so it's fine. Okay. Just gonna make sure that that actually specifically goes to that. This plague is kicking you about? Yeah, I heard. I'm sorry. Hope you feel better soon. Okay. So now, for our wonder, we want to say it's 3 seconds to, say, 15 seconds. I feel like this is the stream where the VTuber model gets to be very unintentionally comedic, as opposed to intentionally comedic like it usually is, because I'm just typing things and the witch is reacting to them in bizarre ways. It's like the witch is on a roller coaster of emotion and I'm just typing code. But okay, so that should mean that our wait is just going to run through and give us a much more wider range of unpredictable periods between when the mob actually moves around. So let's give that a quick run. We will go into here and say system out print line wait duration set to ticks. There. So we'll just have a message of how long this is whenever it starts up. In theory, I could break run to like 3 different things, much like the actual task system uses. So start, tick, and stop. But yes, we did get the CPU. It will be installed, hopefully, by Thursday's stream. It's just a matter of when I'm physically and mentally capable of doing so. When it arrived Monday, it was a rough day. It's like, the CPU turned up at 8:30. I had to handle groceries turning up at 2 by myself. I don't even know what time I actually got to do things. Okay, wait duration set to 228, wait duration set to 220. Right, we have definitely missed something because that is basically every single time. And I'm pretty sure it's this part here. That little symbol means greater than. We're always setting ticks to be greater than 0. There we go. Less than or equal to 0. Our little guy is just hopped up on caffeine right there. Always good to test these things. I could have moved on to making a more variable parallel node, but no, this is a thing we should definitely have tested first. But yes, for right now, we are still on the 1 machine. We will hopefully be back to a 2 machine setup by Thursday. Which will mean I'm able to run Space Engineers at good FPS and good graphics again. Yay. Okay, so give him a mo. Set to 181. Wait a few seconds. 198. So yeah. There we go. Just happily wandering around, doing their thing. And there is absolutely no strangeness to this. It looks very much like standard vanilla Minecraft mobs wandering around. .291 would be something in the region of close to 15 seconds. But yeah, their basic wonder. We can see that running through. So starts, set random position, make sound, move to position, wait. All good. Perfect. We could also add a decorator to the make sound to make them randomly say things by just straight up calling the actual predicate. So, let's see, new decorator. Ambient RNG, I guess we'll say. Predicates, pair of mob and whiteboard. Did I name it wrong? I think I did. But very simply, we're just going to ask the mobs RNG. There we go. So now it's just once every 4 times it goes through that. Okay. Right. So now, what we want to do is make a parallel node so that we can actually have things run simultaneously with this that are just sort of able to run constantly until something stops. So, for that, we need to change up our parallel node a little bit. So let's have a private final style in here. Equals, we'll say style equals and. And we're going to make ourselves a little private enum called style. There's a lot of things called style in this. It is generally best to make these as incredibly specific as you possibly can. Which I will grant that the Forge devs clearly did, because they renamed a very specifically named function called math helper into muff. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. But oh well. Okay, so we want and, we want or. And basically we'll say and is all things must be running, or must be anything is running. So, what we want to say is switch style case and that is basically this chunk right here. Whereas case or is if anything is running, then we just keep running. Okay. Now by default, that's just and. But we can change that up. And there we go. So that doesn't break any of our existing ones that we've already made, but now we have this option of having something that can run simultaneously and will only reboot effectively once it's actually gone through all of its nodes. Meaning we can effectively build parallel nodes that have cooldowns. They will only start doing something else once a wait inside of them has actually finished. Pretty handy. So let me see. To do this, we can now more or less reduce this to a singular node, a singular or parallel node. Pretty nice. So, new parallel, which we're going to say is our wonder. Yeah, we'll call it cycle for the time being. We want parallel.style.or. We need to make that actually visible currently because it's not. And then give it our nodes. And then we do want this to still be a sequence, so... Okay, it's happy with that now. Good. So currently, this is just a parallel node with a sequence inside of it, but we can move our random weight here. Is that the right number of values? I think it is. Okay. Shuffle that into here. So now, what we should see happening is our guy spends 3 seconds to 15 seconds doing one particular run here, and then otherwise, we'll actually just continue moving around. So if he somehow picks a route that takes more than the wait time will, it should just reboot. Or if he doesn't have a route, essentially. Effectively meaning that the difference between times of each kind of run can be quite different and should look a little better. Similarly, we can replace this, or we can nest rather, this decorator node with another parallel or for another timer, so it's just like there's a minimum amount of time between actually saying things. So, new parallel ambient sound. Make a sound right there, and a variable weight. So let's see, usually it is in the vicinity of, I'm trying to think here, usually it's in the vicinity of like a few seconds. If we check living entity, we can find it. No, is that... what is it? I'm sure ambient sound is somewhere in here. Am I thinking of mob? Is it in mob? Probably mob. There you are. Interval. So it's about 4 seconds. So let's say reference values second times 4. Terrifying number, 4 apparently. And reference values second times 8. Very angry number, that one. Okay. And we're probably gonna want to just shove that elsewhere as something that's running parallel to this, I think. But let's just see how this logic runs. if it runs, because I've just nested something we haven't tried twice, which is maybe not my smartest decision. Wandering is something that a task system is decently good at. So, we're taking a system that's built for reliability and not being too random, and we're trying to make it random. But if we can do that, basically we can replicate every single thing that vanilla AI does. Okay, we had a sound. Okay. I think having the ambient sound in there is maybe not my wisest of decisions. But okay. I think that's working out okay. We can never take the wait duration report out. Don't need to see that. Yeah, because right now what's happening is this is waiting for ambient sound to be completed before it moves to move 2. Make a sound, wait, off we go. So it never makes noise whenever he's moving around, but bleh. But yeah, hopefully we're starting to get a feel for the kind of things we can make this do. I'm gonna say that that's good for a simple wonder. Okay. So. Next task. Melee attack. Now we get to do a violence, everybody. So. What are we gonna do for this, I wonder? And this can probably just be a selector now, rather than anything else. There you go. Okay. So just by taking our basic actions, our leaf nodes, gluing them together in a reasonably sensible way, we've now got an entire branch that just does one specific action reliably. Okay. So now we want to do something else here. So there's our initial selector in our test tree. That is the thing that controls our wandering. Now we can put as many nodes in here as we like. That's where things start to branch out quite a bit. So we want a new thing here of has targets. So let's see, there should be a target in here. Yep, mob targets. And if that becomes the case, new branch melee. Which we haven't made yet, so it doesn't exist. And I will probably be collating all of these into a specific branch class later on, because they are basically just single line things. And this will be descended from selector. So, first thing we need to know, how close are we to our mob, or to our target, and do we need to move closer to them? Pretty straightforward. We do theoretically want to descend this into a node of, is our target still alive? But we'll start off small here. So, let's see, new decorator. Or move closer, I guess we'd call this. And a decorator, again, is just basically a conditional. It's something that spits out true as long as it and its descendants say it's okay. And if that's the case, then we want to use actions move to the address being entity whiteboard.mob target. And we're gonna say at like 0.75d, which is basically just their speed multiplier. That needs that. Oh, different predicate. Come on, Google. There you are. So public boolean apply pair mob whiteboard inputs return, and we want to be saying input second get entity mob targets does not equal null. And just expand this a little bit for readability purposes. Flip, flip, flip. There we go. So target does not equal null, and input first, which is our mob, distance to target is greater than, let's say 1 block. That should do. So if the distance to our target is greater than a block, then move closer. Now we can make that a bit smarter based on actual attack range, but next thing is, once we are actually closer, we want to say new actions attack melee entity whiteboard mob target. There we go. I added so many values to that. To the entity whiteboard. There's a lot of information that we can get from the whiteboard now. So we can get their basic stats, armor, move speed, damage, that kind of thing. There's all of their equipment slots individually. We can grab like whatever's in their helmet without actually having access to the mob. We usually do have access to the mob, but just in case. All manner of positions. There's a lot of fallback now if we're trying to get a destination. So we can like move to like a position, a block position, an entity, that kind of thing. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. We'll close Wonder for the moment. Okay. We'll continue work on this in a hot second. I'll be back after my break in about 10 minutes. See you then. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice little break there. So, before our break, we successfully managed to implement very vanilla-like wandering behavior, so we can now actually just drop that branch directly where we want it to be, and they'll behave pretty much like most animals inside of Minecraft. Pretty nice. Now, we are attempting to get melee combat working. So we have another branch here called Attack Melee, and starts off pretty quickly with, are we more than a block away? If so, move closer to the target. If we're less than that, if we're not, then attack the target. And then I've just added a quick little cleanup function here of, if the target's dead, then just clear that value from our whiteboard. Pretty straightforward, I think. So, we've already added that to our actual test entity here. If they have a target, attack the target. So let's see how this works. I have a sneaking suspicion of exactly how this will work. I haven't fixed it during the break because this will be funny to watch. I've also given them the standard vanilla task AI targets here of actually attacking chickens, just as our test case. So let's see how this runs. If this runs, even. And already there's a problem. Okay. To be expected, what was the problem? See, checking the can run of Attack Melee. Guessing cannot read invulnerable time because target is null. Okay. Clearly that's a thing that we need to add into here. So let's extend this from decorator. Just plug those in. There you go. Now it's complaining that we don't have a thing. So we need to ask if we have a target, they're alive, ideally. So let's see, new predicates, pair, mob, and whiteboard. It's much happier now. And the unimplemented. So we want to return input second, our storage, has value mob targets, and input second get entity mob targets does not equal null. If so, we run for this selector. Neat, tidy, fits on one line. Just about. Granted, this is a 1080p monitor, but still. I have seen much worse in Minecraft. Oh lord, I have seen so much worse in Minecraft. There. Just gonna tidy this up. There we go. Okay. So, if we have a target and it's not null, move close to the target, attack the target, and then when they're dead, then do that. Okay, notably that happens after this, because selectors, at least as far as we've implemented them so far, happen... the standard convention is left to right, effectively reading direction. In this it's more like top to bottom, so the first thing that can execute, executes, then it just sort of falls down, effectively. Follow gravity, essentially. But okay, that should clear up our problem. We have to have a target and they have to not be null, because if there isn't a target, the whiteboard will just set that value as null. Okay. Let's run that again. So, by default, our character is not going to have any targets. So it should just default to the wander behavior. Yep, so we can see... I'll just put you on pause there. We have the roots. We don't have a target, so that's not active, so we've gone to... We do have a block position, though, so we're doing our basic wander cycle. So far, so good. The selector at the root is working properly. Let's add a chicken to the mix, shall we? I think that moving close to the chicken was a complete fluke. Or I could be wrong. This is interesting. Okay, so somehow we're not actually triggering the AI task. I wonder if I've overridden something. No, the custom is just fine. There. Is this not getting cold? It's not getting cold. Okay, this is a facet of how 1.19 changed everything for some godforsaken reason. I feel like I say godforsaken reason a lot when I'm talking about when I'm just talking about how Forge and everything changes over time. Did I get cold? Yes. Okay, good. Why there are two here, I don't know. But there are. It's very strange. Okay, so the fact that our test entity there was moving close to the chicken was a complete fluke. Now it should actually do that properly. In theory, our main route could be a parallel OR. And it's just constantly running through it. Oh, and there's a crash. What happened this time? Get attribute instance. I thought this might be the case. Yes, okay. Yeah, our test entity doesn't actually have the, doesn't actually have attributes right now, believe it or not. So it doesn't actually have a concept of how much damage it can deal. So let me see, we went through this last time. Yeah, Pathfinder mob. Okay. Monster. Create monster attributes. There. That should give it everything it needs to be a Hellion. There we go. Attack damage right there. Follow range, attack knockback, and everything else that we were previously making anyways. Okay. Play. So because it spawned in already close to the chicken, it had to check that as its first thing. So now we might be able to get to the bug that I expected we would get to, as opposed to the other bugs that I didn't. Okay, so it's gone into the wonder cycle right now. Interesting. It clearly... Okay, has to tag it. Move closer, move 2. Don't know why it jumped just there. Interesting here. Okay. So it's finishing its loop cycle. Let's see, has target, attack melee, combat loop, move closer, move 2, and then it immediately goes back into that. So somehow the target value is getting cleared. Interesting. Is it the target dead section, I wonder? Well, let's find out by completely removing that particular piece. other things fix that. Now we can make this be a bit smarter if we wanted to, so we could say that if the mob has low health, then it avoids melee combat, in which case this part was shut off and we just instigate something that's more like a void. So move further away from the target, because it's probably going to kill you. Be handy if I could see the whiteboard right now, but yeah. There we go. That did the trick. Okay, if I give you another one. It's still going back to the wonder. Curious indeed. I am curious exactly what's causing that. Because the only thing that comes to mind is nothing in here is able to run whenever it gets close to them. So the entire thing. And the only thing that comes to mind for that is this. So let's get rid of that part. That I can put into an actual decorator if I need it. That I'm going to make a static value, just because I could use that elsewhere up here, for instance. Let's see, this would be targets, and first input. Is greater than distance to target. There we go. Okay, so that's a bit more cohesive now. Right. So, as long as you're too far away, move closer, and then attack. And the only thing we ask is that you be close enough there. Don't care about swinging, don't care about anything else. Which should mean fewer occasions where this unceremoniously steps out of this behavior. Another thing that we can do, which we will probably not be doing today, but it's a consideration, is we can actually build in the capacity to immediately change tasks. Right now, whenever a task is running, we have to wait for it to finish before we change. And that quite clearly can be a problem when you're in combat, because you want to be able to change up your strategies at a moment's notice. Having to wait, for instance, for a mob to move to a location before it will attack something it notices on the way to that location can be a bit of a pain. But right now, we're just gonna keep going as we are. So we've removed basically all of these problems. Hopefully it's fine. Hopefully it's fine. We could theoretically remove storage has value as well. Just have this be this hunk of things. Because by the time that we call attack melee, we should have already clarified if we have an attack target in the first place. Watch as I've just created a bug. Almost guaranteed. So there's a lot less holding it back right now. Let's see. So it's currently in its wonder. Just waiting for both of those weights to finish. Interesting, it didn't have an attack target. kind of feel like taking out the Wonder for the hot second here. Very interesting. The attack target's just completely not firing. Yeah, suddenly he doesn't. Suddenly he likes the chicken. Previous run, he was murdering it left, right, and center. Okay. Very curious. Very curious indeed. Okay, for our test entity, let's remove the Wander branch for the moment. There we go. So the only thing it has to contemplate is that. And hopefully that makes the target selector run a bit more reliably. Just for the moment. We can like, Wander should be like the bottom of the run, effectively, for this. Somehow we're not selecting targets again. Interesting. You should be going on a rampage right now, sir. What have I hacked up in here? So if we have the mob target value, perform melee attack branch, which requires that we have a mob target that is not null. If we do, we go into this combat loop of moving closer and then attacking. Why is none of this working then? Oh, because attack reach squared, being greater than that, should be less than. Distance 2 must be less than that. Let me actually put this in the correct line. Less than or equal to, we'll say. Okay. It's probably that. Probably. We'll find out in a hot second. If I reboot this and we load into the sounds of rampant chicken murder, we know I fixed it. Okay, move 2. It's still in the move 2. Guessing it, for whatever reason, thinks it can't get close enough. It's definitely following the chicken. So hey, we've come up with a follow behavior by accident. Is it because our attack melee less than or equal to? Yes. We are getting closer, at the very least. Quite literally, we're getting closer. But also, this is getting closer to function properly. So distance to... Oh, distance to squared there. Oh, that's my problem. I use distance 2 over here. SQR used to mean square root, but they changed it around. So that's a thing I need to bear in mind. Of course, the actual value, the square-rooted value is lower than the squared value. The squared value is the square-rooted value times itself, so of course it was stuck in move closer. Chicken murder now? Chicken heaven now! Still in the move too. Interesting. What's really interesting is how it keeps moving around at all. What chicken are you even aiming at, sir? Okay, I think we might have overwhelmed him slightly. So move 2 turns off. Oh, I put this the wrong way around. There we go. I gave it the same value as the attack melee, basically. Less than or equal to. Rather than if it's greater than that. So it's stuck in a thing it has no need for. My brain is apparently just not on tonight. I made random wandering, and then I failed to get the slightest bit of cohesive action working. It happens to us all. Chicken heaven now! Please, thank you. Please, hopefully. Oh yeah, we got chicken heaven. What happened? Do hurt target. What happened? Why did that cause a problem here? Cannot invoke the hurt because the hurt target is null. Probably because it just got hecking murdered. Okay. Well, that's fine. Because we need to get the entity from there and check if it's null or not. So that would be fairly straightforward. If get entity address equals null, then just return. Otherwise, chicken murder now. Now you might have noticed at the boot up there that we heard multiple chickens dying. Instantaneously. That could be because of one of two things. Either we set the value of our entity's damage so high that it's able to one-shot chickens, but given that the default value for attack damage is 2, i.e. 1 heart, I don't think that's the case. So what is more likely to have happened... How much health do chickens actually have? Quick question. 4. What's more likely is that our entity does not care how recently he's actually murdered something, so he can hit it again. Basically, machine gunning chickens. Oh, you're kind of stuck in a wall there, my friend. Master warrior, right here. Okay. Efficiently murdering chickens, very well. Except that that's attacking way faster than he should be allowed to. You can generally only attack about once every second, at least to get max damage. So, we want to be introducing a cooldown, as it were, between actual attacks. Pretty straightforward for that. So for that, because we have our new parallel OR, new parallel attack, and we're going to be saying parallel.style.or, that, and a new weight of reference values second. So it can only run this again once this has actually depleted. Or at least that's the theory. Let's find out if it's actually the case. We can theoretically put our wonder back in now. There we go. Because attack behavior should have priority over everything. Okay. So it's just minding his own business. Much more reasonable rate of chicken murder. I feel like he's running real fast here. I think he just nearly clipped through, but he is attacking at a much more reasonable rate, which is what we want to see. Okay. So that is our melee attack branch working. I will dial down his speed, though, by about a third. So move closer to them until you can attack them. Once you can attack them at a rate of basically once per second. Nice. Nice. That's our melee attack. Okay. Now we're gonna go for something that's a little bit more complicated, if you can believe it. Like, we just combined a half dozen different nodes to make melee work, but if it works, it works. Look at that. Yeah. Nice, nice, nice. I like it. So we want our entity, when he doesn't have when he doesn't currently have an attack target, to pick up the nearest weapon, effectively, the nearest sword and such. Ideally, the nearest one that's better than what he's already holding, but either way. So let's make ourselves a new branch, which we'll call Equip Sword. And this is going to need it's going to need to start with a parallel, maybe? Let's call it the selector. Because first we need to identify a nearby sword. Okay. We do have an action for that. So, store nearest valid item. And we want to give this thing a name of store sword. And then our item stack predicates. Say the range is 15 blocks. And we want to be storing that into target sword. Okay. So, for swords, I believe that their main hand is registered as, the main hand slot is registered as their equipment slot. But let's find out to be sure. Let's see, can attack, can block, hurt enemy, is correct tool, attribute modifiers, equipment slot, main hand. There we go. Okay. So we want to say inputs dot get equipment slot equals... There is a spider directly above my desk. Hi there, tiny friend. Go the hell away from me. Okay. So let's see, we're looking for... It needs to be an item that goes in the main hand, and then either we're not holding anything already, or its attack damage is better than what we currently have. Zombies are a good example of how this works. I presume monster in general will do the trick here. Nope. Okay, zombies are a good example of this. Wants to pick up. There we are. Not interesting. Interesting zombies expressly do not want to pick up glow ink sacs. Huh. Glow squid ink sacs they're just apparently really turned off by. Interesting. Okay. Can hold. Yep, I guess that's all fine. I know they have logic for picking up things that are better than what they already have. Or was that a feature that got removed at some point? I can't access the mob from this particular decorator, so that's a thing to bear in mind. What I can do is theoretically chain these together into a number of different things. But okay. So, first things first, we store the latest thing. Probably having this be a sequence. Probably worth having this be a sequence then. There we go. Okay, so that fires, and then we want to plot a we want to make sure that if we're too far away, we move to it. So similar to our melee branch. Where have I gone wrong here? That's fine. Ah. There we go. Okay. Where is it gone? That's always the worst point, is when the spider... Okay, it is literally hiding in... It's hiding behind the sun. By which I mean it is currently just hanging out right by my light fixture. Yeah. Let's create ourselves a static final string just to reference. A little easier here, because we're gonna have to be referencing this a lot. There. So if distance to the target is greater than the width of the mob's hitbox. There. Then move closer. Otherwise, after that, we want new actions pickup item there. Okay. So this is very simple. This will just have them pick up any item as long as it goes in the main hand. If it's a helmet or something else, then they'll ignore it completely. Or they should. That's the hope here. That is the hope. So, new branch equip sword. And just for sake of brevity here, I'm just going to ask to bring in everything there. Okay. This only happens when they don't have an attack target, however, so they won't do it in the middle of a fight. In theory, we could nest this into branch melee so that they do it as long as they can't currently see the target. Their attack target, to be specific. Okay. I do want to check if the hand is empty or the weapon is better, though. But I don't really have access to that in here. I hate this. I hate having spiders directly overhead. I know it's just going to dangle down at some horrifying moment and put me in, like, suddenly I'm going to be included in, like, a Twitch fails compilation or something. This is not good for me. But okay, right. Let's put this behind a check. For has item in slot. We want to say doesn't have that in slot, so let's go to our checks. Public static class slot is empty, or is slot empty, I guess. And we basically want to be doing the exact same thing as this, but in reverse. So new checks is slot empty. Entity whiteboards. Oh, not that one. Let's see, should be slots. Where are you? No, am I not allowed to see that? Okay. Go to that for a hot second. There. Now I can actually see that thing. So is slot empty. We want to be saying in our checks, which have gone walkies, there we are. Okay, we can literally just give it an equipment slot because I was smart. At some point in my life, I was smart. So we're checking for the name. Well, we're giving it a name as a decorator, giving it a slot, and then we're doing a check if it is empty. Okay, so call it no sword, I guess. Equipment slot dot main hand. And the equip sword branch. Okay. So identify the nearest thing. Do the thing. Pick it up. Okay. This probably wants to be inside of a nested selector, because if we can't find a sword, we don't want to do any of this. So, checks dot has value. Nearby sword, we'll say. Our address is going to be target. And then what we'll do is new selector. Manage sword. Which will do these things below. Does has value check if it's null? It does not. sword. We can probably change that at the very least. But we don't actually know what type of value that is. Store nearest valid item. Yeah, it clears it if we can't have it. So there shouldn't be a value there, period, if it hasn't managed to find a sword. Okay. So if we have no sword, identify the nearest sword on the ground, move over to it, and equip it. Should be straightforward. Let's find out. I feel like I've said that a lot tonight, and I've lost it in the sun again. Where has it gone? Oh lord, I think it's actually gone inside of my light fixture. I'm never gonna see that thing again, if I'm lucky. Or more specifically, I'm never going to see it coming. Lying panics about spiders live on stream. Here we are. Oh, and we have a crush. What happened? Bullion cannot be cast to item stack. Okay. What happened here? How did that happen here? Is slot empty? Get item in slots. Because apparently a weirdness happened. What do you mean Bullion cannot be cast? Was there a... Did we somehow name this so that all of these are booleans? That shouldn't be right. Oh, yeah, has item in slot. Ah, there's our problem. There we go. Fix that. That's a fairly simple mistake to make. This is the problem of adding data values before you actually have a use for data values, I guess. Okay, that should be fixed up now. Now it should actually refer to what is there. Okay, so he's trying to store a sword. Right now he's just doing that in a loop rather than moving to his wander code because there's nothing preventing this from running. So let's add a check for the presence of nearby swords. So new decorator. Check for swords. Oh, there you are. So let's see, public, that, basically, save me some time, and we just want to return not the mob, level get entities of class item entity dot is empty. And the bounding box is going to be the mob's bounding box. Which we will then, I really hate that they named it this, inflate. I've been on the internet way too long for this to be the thing, but apparently. So if there are any items nearby, we look for a sword and do this. Okay. Now we can add a predicate here to check, effectively, if there is a sword nearby, if there is something that we are quantifying as a sword. And that will mean that he's not just running this whenever there's an egg on the ground from the chickens he's just been murdering. Sounds like a good idea, actually. There. So check if there's anything nearby that constitutes a sword. Store the nearest one in our target sword entry. Then do all of these things. And I think at the end of this we want to actually have a thing that clears that value from the actual place, but it's probably fine for right now. Okay. So now we should be able to go back to wandering whenever there's not actually a sword to pick up. Can I get him to pick up a sword just in time? Okay. Has targets, no sword, has a block position. So it doesn't have a target, there's nothing for him to pick up. Let's change that for a hot second. Again, I'll probably be interrupting, I'll probably adding interrupts in a mo, but for right now this will do. And you appear to be stuck in your move 2 again. How? There we go. Yeah, definitely needs some interrupts, possibility, as an option of things. Right. And back to wandering, so completely ignoring this, because there are no swords nearby. So, let's give him a wooden sword. Just dunk that over there. And not detecting the sword, I think. Or no sword is ever actually like triggered. Get him closer a bit. No, he not understand sword. Okay. So something about this is causing it to never fire. Okay. Is slot empty? Main hand. We can see quite clearly that it is, so it's definitely not that. All of this should mean he's very much able to actually see it. Not empty, meaning, are there any? Storing the sword. If there are any, then store the sword is what this basically amounts to. If we have the value for that, then go through into this decorator. If we're too far away, then ooh, distance 2, please. Because again, of course the square is going to be greater than the width. Move to it, and then pick it up. Hopefully. Okay. Okay. Let's just have that run. I could theoretically do with adding just like a feature that just sets these nodes to say something in the log whenever they start running or such. That could be handy for debugging, come to think of it. I should do that. I won't do that now, but I should do that. Anyways, we will quickly reboot this and see what exactly is failing. Also, I should really just give decorators, like, a value, a value thing of, like, yes, or, like, true or false or whatnot. Like, a not. Like, capacity to not a decorator. Would save me some time here. Well... Checking for swords. Problem. Apparently, we didn't find any. Huh. Okay. Well, we will hopefully be able to fix this up after my break. So I'll be back in another 10 minutes. See you then. Welcome back, everybody, to the final hour of our evening here, and we are currently attempting to create a compound node branch for our behavior tree that will allow us to have our mob move over to a sword and pick it up if they don't currently have one. So far, it seems to not be firing, and I'm not entirely clear on why, because there isn't really much in the way of diagnostics in here. It's all recursive. But let's see if some of the sysouts I've added can help in some fashion. So there is sword. Please enjoy sword. Checking for swords, and then nothing else. So the problem here is that this is somehow failing. Somehow, I think, check for swords is failing. Because if check for swords wasn't failing, if this was passing, then our next thing would be to be storing the nearest sword, because this would be running through and checking for the valid items. So what's going wrong with that? Let's see, new predicates. The item must have an equipment slot of the main hand. Okay, why is not empty, which means that there has to be at least one within 15 blocks in any direction of the entity. So why are we having trouble with this? Just having a thought of maybe this is happening all of the time? No, this is a sequence and then it goes into a selector. So it's not that part. What's causing this then? Is it our predicate? Is slot empty? Let's find out. That should give us at least 2 reports whenever it runs this. Actually, it's interesting that we're seeing... I'm guessing it's just because it's running for the cycle there, that's fine. This is the interesting thing that happens when you have to debug a behavior tree. Okay, so it's just currently running through its list. Just in the wait section of the wander cycle now. What happened there? Let's see. Checking if slot is empty. It was, so we moved on to the next one. Checking for swords. We couldn't find any. So it is definitely this part. So what's going wrong here? Well, let's start by getting our entity here. Just to make it a little clearer what we're looking for. And we'll put a private stack. Just so we're not constantly remaking that. Okay. So looking for all of the item entities within 15 blocks that have a main hand slot. Actually, can I ask if the slot is valid? No? I guess in theory everything is. Can that equal null? It can't be empty. There's that. Do I want to say null, or do I want to say is empty? I'm guessing empty. Would theoretically identify a sword, but for right now, the easiest thing is the very, very dumb thing to make sure that this works, which is check if it's a sword. Like that. Straightforward. Also, owing to the incredible creativity of the devs, item entity, get item, get item. These things refer to 3 different objects. Frustrating that, but oh well. Okay. So now we are checking for literally anything that is holding something that's an instance of sword item. We don't care its properties, we don't care if it's modded or not, we're asking for a sword item. Theoretically, sword item will still catch the majority of sword items in the modded kind of ecosystem, but for right now we're just checking to see if it's indeed the predicate for checking for the swords that's causing us to not be able to store the sword. Because we need to be able to store a sword and then actually retrieve that value later to actually equip the sword. An interesting detail of this whole thing is that, unlike players, using our behavior tree, our mobs can actually pick up specific items from a bundle. So, if a chest gets broken, for instance, and there's 1,500 items lying on the ground or whatever, they can walk into the entire crowd of it and just pick up specifically what they want. Lucky them. Must be nice. Another interesting thing, actually, is when I was making the actual actions down here for controlling mob inventory, I made a very specific decision, which is that you will notice all of these refer to the main hand slot. So currently, zombies wandering through a thing of items will instantaneously don them. They'll go into the main hand slot, they'll go into all their armor slots, they don't have to do any real management and such. Using the behavior tree as I have currently writ it, however, the mob has to juggle everything through its main hand slot in order to actually get the thing that it's looking for into its main hand, and then it can do what it wants to it. Be that equip it, drop it, that kind of thing. So its main hand, in order for it to pick anything up, has to be empty. I don't know how, I don't know 100% right now if I'm going to be keeping it like that, but that is an entertaining detail. I like the idea. I like the idea of behavior trees, having mobs just like juggle them. Okay, we're in the wonder because there's no sword. I could have sworn there was a sword over here, but apparently not. Blip. Are you okay? I'm not seeing anything here that suggests they're even trying to run this. Interesting. Checking for swords. I'm not seeing any. So now you think you have something? Hang on, let me actually check your data. Apparently, you do have a sword. I just can't see it. Okay. So this worked. I just can't verify that it worked. Okay. let's reset you and see if we can get that to, why am I talking about resetting you? I can just murder you. Certainly didn't drop anything, that's for sure. Okay. Summon. Test. There. Okay. Chicken. Sword. Okay. Sword picked up. Perfect. Okay. And I'm guessing now you also say. So it's just because I don't have a rendering set up for this. Yes. Okay. Wooden sword. Hooray! What do I have to do to make that visible to me is my next question. Should probably make that also actually pick up. Just as a note. So let's see. Mob in drop. Set drop chance for equipment slot. Main hand. 1F. Because we want to be able to retrieve that. Potentially. I think it's a float from 0 to 1. I hope it is. But okay. I should also do that for equip, come to think of it. Equip held item. There you are. Does not tell me what the slot is, though. Get equipment slot for item in mob. Okay. There. Just to tidy that up a little bit. Okay. So now we can pick up a sword. And the way this goes is, do I have a target? If so, attack them. If I don't have a target, do I have a sword? If I do, if I don't, go and pick one up. If both of those fail, then just wander about for a bit. Okay. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. So, the next detail, next one we have on our list here. Establish item pickup. The only thing we can't do with item pickup is see it. So, where do I actually find out where that is? Item in hand layer. Okay. Item in hand layer. Okay. Will that suffice if I shove that into the test renderer? I hope so. I hope so. Because it'll help us considerably if we can actually see it. Where's the zombie renderer? There you are. Let's see, value 2 in the zombie renderer is M. Dreadfully helpful. Really, really dreadfully helpful there. I believe that's referring, yeah, there we go, to just baked layers. Okay. Oh, why did they make the graphics so incredibly absurd? This is why I've been having so much trouble this past week, because there's just so much that they have changed for no good reason whatsoever. In the like client-side UI and end of things, it's utterly hideous. Okay, zombie model, and straightforwards, one would think. So that's the that is the context. Okay. And the layer we're baking is the model layer location. Model layers.zombie. I think. Now what's your problem? Oh lord, okay. Zombie, zombie model, zombie. Okay, so that would then, for this, be test entity humanoid model test entity. Cannot be parameterized. Ugh. Okay, humanoid model instead of zombie. There you go. Okay. Now you're not screaming at me. So does that mean we'll be able to actually see our zombie, or our test entity picking things up? Let's find out. I hope so, because that'll be really helpful right now. Yes, okay, we can actually see the sword now. We can do the same again for armor later. We can also do comparisons later on by just storing specific values of, like, nearest best sword, that kind of thing. And seeing if that's both neither null and also checking that it's both not null and is better than what we're currently using. But okay, so let me just kill that guy. Summon test entity again, so now he's got nothing in him. Drop a stone sword. Come on, I believe in you. Well, it is definitely figuring out it needs to move closer, but evidently the move action is not quite precise enough for it. So if I edge you a little bit more, whoops, sorry. There you go. Okay, picked it up. So I'm gonna put a note in my move too, but it's maybe not quite precise enough. I want to know something I've realized is we don't really have them looking at anything. And again, the right sequence of animations in like sequence makes mobs look way smarter than they might actually be. So I'm probably going to embellish this much as I did our original Wonder code to actually have like looking and whatnot. But for right now, there we go. Equipping a sword. And that sword should mean you can actually one-shot chickens now. Yep, there we go. Okay. Very good. And then he defaulted back into Wonder, so we have to wait a bit for him to realize. There we go. Very good. Very good, sir. Very good. Ha! Yay! Successful murder! Okay. Let's get rid of that as well. Ideally, you should never leave sysouts in your code because it tends to bog the console down with irrelevant data. So, right. Calling item pickup, good. The only thing we need to do is improve move to so that it's actually more precise. Not entirely certain how precisely we do that. So let's check the LA maybe? Why is LA AI a thing? What does this mean? Minecraft, what are you doing? You have a whole separate class for the brain of the alley. Okay. I've been looking into the actual brain thing, and it has some resemblance to, at the very least, a whiteboard, and then an actual behavior tree, but it seems to be I'm not 100% certain what it's actually doing. It seems to be just mostly just a variation of the task system, but with memory. And that's a weird thing to have, but... at this point, I don't know what... at this point, I don't know that I have much to say about the Mojang devs that I haven't already. At least as far as their code goes. And in fairness to them, this code goes back, like, over a decade, so... It being incredibly, like, efficient and stuff would be kind of a miracle. if they had done anything, like, short of rebuild it from scratch after the first, like, 5-10 years. But, bleh. Anyways, what we are looking for here is the behavior for allies of picking things up, because we want to see... They have to fly over to things to pick them up, so they must presumably have some degree of knowledge of precision, or slightly different information on picking up. So where are we seeing that, is the question. Pickup reach. Ah, there we are. That's a good clue. So item pickup reach is a value of within 1 block, basically, is what that's saying. So where does that get called? Yeah, there we are. Get pickup reach. Huh. So inflate it according to that. Ah, interesting. Interesting, okay. So what we would be looking for here is not just that it intersects, but that it is within pickup reach. Distance, effectively. Okay. So, let's see, that would be inputs.distance, well, input.first.distance to target is greater than input first pickup reach. There. Which defaults to 0. That's dreadfully helpful. Let's say 1 then. The ally definitely uses a 1F, so we'll take that. Okay. Or its hitbox doesn't intersect, at the very least. So either it's more than a block away, or it's not currently intersecting our bounding box. That should hopefully make it a bit more reliable. What did I say for the... Yeah, there we go. Can run, either it intersects, or... Target distance to the mob is less than or equal to 1. There. This is what I mean by say it. Like, I keep putting in these checks in the can run section of actions, when really I should be making that an actual job of a branch that uses these actions. But, yeah, for right now it's fine. Because every time one of these leaves fails because of that, I don't know why it did so. Okay. You should now actually drop... Well, you won't drop it because I've turned off mob loot. But if I turn mob loot back on, you well, you won't drop it because you didn't have the code for that. Okay, I'm just gonna murder you real quick and we'll see. Yeah, didn't drop it. Okay. But now they've actually got the knowledge for that, so hopefully. Summon new test. Just wandering. Drop this. I actually want you to be, like, trying. Here, come on. What's he doing? What's up? Check for swords, nearby sword, move to. Still has trouble. Okay. Why still has trouble? Yeah, you wanna see actually, like, just whilst I'm pontificating, I guess. You wanna see the dumbest thing that I've seen the Forge devs do in a very long while? I'm reasonably certain that this is the Forge devs responsible for this. I don't 100% know. Ostensibly, they try to move their, like, the deobfuscated code as close to what Mojang works with as possible, but they make some absurd decisions sometimes to just do stuff for the heck of it. So do you want to know what the stupidest thing I've seen them do is, for, like, the recent memory at least? At least more recently than Muff. Let's have a look at the model for all of the illagers. This will be emblematic of basically what all of the entity models do now, and it's actually made me reconsider ever making another model in Minecraft, because it's ridiculous. This is how an illager model works. So before, I want to say at least as far back as 1.8, which is roughly when I started making mods, all of your model parts, or what is here now called model parts, would be generated as part of the constructor. Okay? Simple, straightforward. You basically, you call the model and it takes its Legos and it assembles the model for you. Makes sense, okay? Now, for reasons known only to the Dark Lord himself, that's not what happens. More than 10 years into development, that's not what happens. What happens instead is this function, create body layer, is made for every single model and is then registered inside of this external place called layer definitions. Then the constructor for the model is called inputting what is created by create body layer. So to reiterate, instead of having your cutlery in the drawer, as it were, in your kitchen, the cutlery is stored in a warehouse across town, and you have to go over there to get the cutlery that you use for your kitchen and come back. Instead of just having the cutlery in your kitchen. I hope that metaphor is parsable. There is, like, the name changes in a lot of places that I deal with and get massive headaches from is one thing, but this has categorically zero upside. There's no, like, overhead storage. In fact, the overhead storage just increases because you've now got an external registry that has to hold layer definitions for every single entity model. So effectively, you've duplicated it. So why they've done this, I don't know, and it is a drastic departure from how models are generated as well. Like, look at this. This looks simpler this looks cleaner because it's shorter than what it used to be, but I can barely read this, and I've been staring at this for like over a day already. Like, can you see where parenting happens now? Do you remember my old pal parenting with the horse model? I don't know why they've done this. I can't believe they've done this. It's just utter nonsense. It's absurd. Hey. Okay, so all those together, target bounding box intersects the mob's bounding box, or is less than or equal to a block away. That's straightforwards. Perform this as well as long as the target isn't null and distance to it is greater than 1, or it doesn't intersect our bounding box. Okay, I can probably store the mob at that point. Just because I'm using input.get first repeatedly. Okay. So why the thing here? Weird. Okay, so instead of like having branch equipped swords determine this, what we should really be doing is just have at the highest, at like really high tiers here, or potentially set as like a value inside of the whiteboard, check for nearby swords. Like store, like we basically just give it a list of values that it has to like check through in addition to its default stuff. And then we can actually have branch equipped sword just run on, do we have that value? So basically this down here. But for right now, that would be quite a bit to do. The next thing we have to do is ranged attack using a bow. Now, once we get it working for a bow, we can have it work for a crossbow as well. But in order to make it work for a bow, we have to make sure that it's actually able to make sure it has a bow in its main hand, and then check that bow is there, then engage the use action, time the use action, and then at the end of that use action, or during an interrupt as it were, release the arrow and reset the use action. We don't currently have the capacity to do most of that. And I'll be honest, my brain is kind of fried because I opened up the Illager model and it remembered its trauma like Vietnam. So we are probably not going to get to that today. But for the moment, we're going to go to our node class and we're going to check for should interrupt effectively. So we want public boolean should interrupt according to a mob that we give it, and according to the values of that. By default, we'll return false here, because most things don't need this. But if we wanted to override that for any reason, we can have it do so. So in the case of our branch for wandering, we want to go to that parallel cycle, and we want to say public boolean should interrupt if the mob has an attack target. Okay. So now, if we are running, then well, we want to have a general kind of check for this, so this would be, is running for most things is just checking for the lowest thing. It's basically when we get to like a compound, which is right here. We want to check our is running as well as the lowercase of everything else is running. So let's see. Public final boolean should interrupt cursive trying to think if this is correct. No, I think it's fine if we just change it inside of compound node. So let's see. Public boolean should interrupt. Recursive values get really rough for human brains to deal with. Get active node dot should interrupt. There. Okay. Now, in the case of our parallel node up here, which is a compound node, we're saying it should we don't care what part of this we're in. We should interrupt it if we have an attack target. So that should mean that instead of waiting for these waits to actually finish, our mob will immediately move to the attack step if it is if it suddenly gets an attack target whilst waiting. So if root.shouldInterrupt, that should be mob-in and the whiteboard, then root.setRunning false. Otherwise, just continue. Straightforwards. So that should make our thing a little bit more dynamic. So basically, as soon as I spawn a chicken, give or take, he should go about his murder spree. So I'll give him a sec to wonder. Oh, there's no interrupt in here. Aha, okay. So because I picked up his sword, he can't move closer to it. So no sword, equip sword, check for swords. Just constantly looping there. So let's see our nearby sword. Or do I say the entire decorator for this? The problem here is I want to include the descendants thing, like values in here. I don't want to necessarily overrule everything. So let's say public final boolean standard interrupt. And that does this. And by default, it just calls that. Okay. There. So that being a final means I cannot ever change it. That's just always the default behavior. But for right now, we're checking, do we have an attack target, or should we interrupt any of these descendants? Okay. So let's see, we have our selector there. Public boolean should interrupt. And we're going to say, if the object doesn't exist suddenly, for whatever reason. So let's see. We're looking for that. So storage.hasValue. target, and storage get entity target does not equal null. Otherwise, we need to interrupt. So if we don't have the value or the target does equal null, then interrupt this selector and get us out of here. And let's see, then there's the check for that then goes into our initial decorator, because this is by itself a sequence. So it should do this in order, and then we shouldn't have to worry about it. This is fine-tuning to the nth degree here, because the more reliable we can make this, the more useful mobs like the companions are going to be. But yes, I'm probably going to tidy this up quite a bit. Essentially, we have nodes, and then we have compound nodes, which are groups of nodes operated upon under a certain logic. And then we have branches, which are pre-existing entire trees. Okay, so you're gonna pick up the sword? Yes, you're just not getting close enough to it because logic is still being finicky. Okay. But if I pick it up... It is intriguing to me that you are still going into the move to logic for an entity that does not exist. Curious. But you did immediately go... Okay, you're trying to pick up a sword now because you're seeing all of that. Which I definitely should actually, like, have you skip over, but it's fine. So where does this decorator go to? Oh, right, yes, this is a sequence, which means it's always running. So strictly speaking, the check for nearby swords should be actually the main node for this, and everything else is after that. So a sequence of store the nearest and then do everything else. Okay, that's a failure of my logic. That's fine. We can fix that. But we got the interrupt working, because as soon as I put down an actual chicken, off he went to murder. Which is exactly what we wanted to see. Very good. Very good, sir. And I'm gonna plonk this as a fix me. So this should be... rewire. There. So currently he's trying to establish if any of these are actually swords, so he's just going weirdness. So it's currently in his weights. He should just be coming out basically immediately after I put that down. So something's going weird here. So let's see, the roots should interrupt is just always returning false. But for the compound nodes, like the selector, which is this top node at the top, the main root, if we have a look at our test entity here, we can see, yep, we start with a root of a selector. Good. It occurs to me I could probably... Oh, I wonder if it's just because I haven't written it for the decorator. That might be it. Okay, hang on. Decorator. public boolean should interrupt. Return child node should interrupt. There. Because this is strictly, technically this is a compound node, it's just, it only takes one object. I should probably make this into a, like, extending out of compound node, because it uses a lot of the same code, but bleh. Okay, that's probably what was stalling it, because with that, we had to actually be past one of these checks first, before we did all of that. So we weren't actually getting up the tree entirely in order to tell it to, hey, stop running, we need to run a recalc here. Sir, I would like you to murder the chicken in a timely fashion. It's interesting that you're not murdering the chicken to me. Let's see, pickup item should interrupt all of that. Pickup item is a leaf single, so there's not much going on there. Wait, no, it's the selector I'm seeing here. Okay, so I want to say return standard interrupt. Yes, good. Okay, fine. It's the wonder that's being a little weird here. Oh, did I put this on the wrong node? Ah, I put it on the ambient sound wait. That's what's going weird. So as long as any of these are running, then that's running. That's why. Ah. I put it on. Dangers of writing your code weird, I guess. Okay, so this whole branch of wandering stops if all of that. Okay. I could also put that directly inside of our test entity over here. But currently that's inside of a check, but yeah, it's fine. So let's see, branch wander, there. So stop doing the wander branch if we have an attack target. Now, I could have things that don't care if they have an attack target and they're just going to continue wandering. Maybe they have a turret on their back. I don't know. But okay. See how that works. Hopefully the answer is well. One of the major performance overheads that comes with a behavior tree, especially as it gets bigger, is that usually current node interrupted? Why is it being interrupted now? What's going on with our melee attack branch? Somewhere in here we have something automatically firing true when it should not necessarily be firing true. These nodes should be fine. Because those are all running out of compound node. The decorator, maybe? No? Okay. Should interrupt if something descendant says to interrupt, or that. If we have an attack target, that should be fine then. There's nothing in here for doing the interrupt. Is it in the melee attack branch? No. The equipped sword branch, maybe? It shouldn't be. We're not seeing anything actually firing in here. So something here is weird. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Really, that should be inside of the node over there. I don't see any other instances here that could be causing this. Let's see. This is a sequence. The whole sequence probably wants to end on that note then. And that is a single leaf, so it's probably not the problem. Basically nothing here should be going like that, except for this part. The Wonder Branch should be stopping if there is an attack target. Should be being the operative word. I'm not sure. I may have just hacked my code. Actually, let's get a bit more information here. And that would be current node name. There. Just so we can see exactly where it's going and then thinking it shouldn't be anymore. We'll fix this up and we'll call it a night, I think. Building complex systems. Set random position. Interrupted. Okay. So how are we still going back to it constantly, is the next question. We should have an attack target. That's the whole point of why it's breaking out. And if we have an attack target, then we should be going to has target up here. Let's see, if storage has value, entity whiteboard, mob targets, and storage get entity whiteboard mob target does not equal null, return true. Hopefully be it. Set random position is basically the first leaf that gets fired from the Wonder Branch, so it should be good. Humdy humdy hum. Well, something just died. Current node wait interrupted. Okay, why do we keep going back, then? Presumably, some part of it is not being properly set to stop, basically. Set running false should tell all of the nodes to not be running, but the root node will say that it's running as long as any of its descendants are. So somewhere in here is probably that. And I'm guessing it's probably somewhere in the compound nodes. Probably. Let's see, nothing here? Yeah, I think it's the set running part. Selector has a set running. Sequence has a set running. So, yep, that should run fine. The node wait inside a branch wonder. Or at least presumably in wonder. Is under a sequence. We do say to set running false. Okay, this is going to require me to do some digging considerably to try and figure out why we keep getting stuck here, apparently. Let's make sure it's that. Let's make sure that I'm correct, that our calling it to stop running is failing. And then I will wrap up for the evening. Yep, there we go. Clear as day. Run stop failure. Okay. Basically that means we told it to stop and it didn't, which means something is wrong. So, I hope you've all enjoyed for the evening. This is going to require me to do a bit of work. But my next stream should be on Thursday with actual real flesh lying in the literal flesh, for some more midnight shipping. And then on Saturday, well, on Friday, you'll be back to having the witch. Don't get rid of me that easily. Then on Saturday, we have the carousel once again. Playing some random games with the patrons, which might actually, assuming the CPU installation process goes well, actually include games other than Sea of Thieves. We'll see. And then on Tuesday, we'll be back for probably more of this, because it's still probably going to take me quite some time to get through the just over 5,000 errors involved in the Various Oddities 1.19 codebase. You've seen some of the stuff that I've been having to put up with there, so hopefully it's fine, but blah. Anyways, any videos I make will be over at youtube.com/lyingtube, and everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed. I have enjoyed this very much, my jam palette cleanser from all the bugs I've been dealing with, and I'll catch you all as ever next time. Bye!